Hi there. Okay, first of all, can everybody hear me? Uh,
Yes.
okay, wonderful. Thank you. I hope you had a chance to download and review the syllabus for the course. However, and this is embarrassing, I am actually going to be giving you guys an update because I made a mistake. First time in my teaching career. So expect a syllabus update by Thursday. I left out an entire assignment. It's sort of tragic. Don't know what was going on with me, but I guess we're all only human. Um, I am so excited to be with you guys and share this space and the learning experience we are about to have. I was honored to teach 416 last semester, and we had a great experience. So I hope that it will be similar for you. Just a little bit about me. I am a subject matter expert, so I only teach neuroscience, or in the case of our course together, a little bit of neurosociology. And that means I'm an adjunct professor just hoofing it all over the greater LA area. But I've been teaching neurobiology in particular at Mount St. Mary's University for the past 8 years or so. Um, and as I mentioned in the syllabus, little kid me would be so delighted to see me here at this sort of dream job because I've been obsessed with the brain since I was in middle school. I actually did my middle school science fair project on lateralization, which is the difference between the right and left hemispheres of the brain. I had to get my dad to help me design a special listening test that sort of I mean it was kind of cruddy. It was a middle school science fair project. But one thing that I hope that happens over the course of the semester is the phenomenon of emotional contagion. Emotional contagion is real, and it's where we catch each other's emotions. So it is quite possible that just by tuning in to this Zoom day after day, week after week, a little of my personal enthusiasm for this topic actually transfers to you, and you become a little bit of a brain nerd, and potentially, given the wide variety of careers that HDEV students go into, a bit of a brain science evangelist. A lot of students, from what I understand from this department, enter the helping professions in some way, shape, or form. And the fact is, folks will look to you for your expertise. So I hope that by the end of the semester, everybody feels more confident and comfortable using neuroscience to explain everyday phenomenon for your future clients or the folks that you end up serving in your future career. All right, enough about me. Um, let's turn our attention to the syllabus. I want to talk over the course description. Now, I cannot take credit for this description. This course was initially conceived of by Dr. Emily Schreier and Dr. Kimberly Kelly. I've had my chance to teach it once, and I'm going to kind of highlight for you guys the course description itself, and then which of the objectives we're really going to focus on, because I did not write these. They were given to me, and we certainly hit some objectives a little harder than others. So, our course description begins by saying the mind emerges from the structures and substance of the brain. That's not the end of the sentence, but I'm going to stop us right there. The mind emerges from the structures and substance of the brain. That's a heady concept, and one that is going to take us basically the entire semester to unpack. In psychology, they have sort of a saying that is an attempt to summarize, this idea that our minds, our mental experience, come from our brain biology. They say everything psychological is biological. And I'm mainly a psychology professor, so I'm sort of stuck with that quote, whether I like it or not. It's in every textbook I ever try to use, but I don't love it because I find it leaves my students a little confused. I was sitting with my psych students on Wednesday and I asked them, what do you think scientists mean when they say this? Everything psychological is biological. And what I've found over the years is that when I ask my students that question, there's a lot of confusion about what this phrase really means. So, when I asked it last week, all my students said something about the mind influencing the body. So they alluded to the idea that when you have an emotion, it can actually affect what's going on inside your body. And they got a very real test of that because I gave them a syllabus pop quiz immediately, which I'm not doing to y'all. I'm going to be nice to y'all. But one of my students shared that as soon as she heard the words pop quiz come out of my mouth, her stomach dropped. So, what is it? Think about this. This student, Alalis, and I have never met before. And I'm just some person standing in a room making sounds with my mouth. But those sounds have the power to change her bodily reality. And we've all felt that stomach drop feeling, probably from hearing a teacher say the word pop quiz. So it is manifestly true that the mind affects the body, but that's not actually what scientists are trying to get at. It's almost the opposite of what they mean when they say everything psychological is biological. Another common way that my students answer this question is to just allude in general to the mind body connection, the two-way relationship between our psychological experience and our physical one. And once again, this is manifestly true. The mind and body do affect each other. But that's, again, not what the phrase is trying to indicate. So when we say, as the course description says, the mind emerges from the structure and substance of the brain, what we are saying is that the body, in particular, the 3 pounds of electrified goo between your ears, the brain, which is just a part of the body creates the mind. So that means that your entire psychological experience, every triumph that you're going to have, that feeling that you're going to get when you walk across the stage at graduation, every tragedy, every heartbreak, Destiny's Child lyrics that you can't get out of your head, all of that stuff only exists for you because of microscopic chemicals that are making their way across the membranes of your 86 billion neurons. And this is actually a wild concept. And as I said, it'll take us a lot of the semester to really grasp. So that wasn't the end of the sentence. The mind emerges from the structure and substance of the brain and is shaped by interpersonal interactions. Now, we all know this to be true. Um, you can confess in the chat if you know one, but maybe you know a person who just kind of exists as sort of a dark storm cloud for you. And the moment that they walk into the same physical space as you, your whole nervous system reacts. Your body tenses up, maybe your stomach drops. You're like, this guy again. We've all felt it. Yeah, some people are saying, yeah, I know one of those. And then on the flip side, there might be a person, and I encourage you to think of that person now. There might be a person who is just medicine for your nervous system. I'm thinking of my best friend Katie. This is one half of our best friend's necklace. And when I get a hug from Katie, I swear that I change. I relax head to toe. And I know from my background in neuroscience that that hug causes my brain to secrete different neurochemicals that affect the way I move through the world in the moments to come. So it's not a joke that Katie's medicine to me. So we know that our nervous systems are affecting each other. So it looks like some of you guys have that person that feels like medicine. So we know our nervous systems affect each other when we interact. And that's what we're really going to try to get deeply into this semester is how is it that our nervous systems affect each other when we interact? So when I hug Katie, you'll learn in this course that my body and Katie's body are both flooded with a neurohormone, the powerful chemical oxytocin. And that chemical not only affects every organ in the body, it also affects our point of view. It actually makes a person more trusting and generous to be a little high on oxytocin. So that hug from Katie might change my behavior for moments. Or yes, Samantha.
Hi, speaking of oxytocin, I'm just curious, is I know that I've read that oxytocin can make you feel tired. Is that true?
Some people do have a strong reaction to the relaxation that like a big burst of oxytocin would create. Yeah, so it is true that it can make you feel, I'd say relaxed might be a better term, but if it's the end of the day and you're already running a sleep deficit, then that oxytocin might influence, you might suddenly feel how tired you've already been. Yeah, so that's true. The biggest moment of oxytocin in the human lifespan is natural childbirth. The process of natural childbirth is managed by a massive surges and in oxytocin. And in fact, if a pregnant person goes into the hospital having trouble getting labor started, they will give that person Pitocin, which is a medication that's just a copy of the oxytocin molecule. So we use fake oxytocin to juice up pregnant folks and get labor going. So it moderates a lot of body processes, and we're gonna have a whole lecture devoted just to talking oxytocin. Okay. Um, this course provides a framework for understanding how human connections shape neural connections. This is a big job, but I'm going to try to do it. And the course description also states that we'll be drawing on Western and non-Western sources. Now, there is a particular challenge for that in neuroscience because the field of science and medicine has been terrible at creating the data we would need to draw on Western and non-Western sources deeply in this course. We barely studied women until about 15 years ago in medicine. Um, However, there is a particular non-Western cultural context with which you will become very familiar by the end of the course, and that is the world of the Paleolithic human, because I'm going to bring up over and over again how our brains evolved as an explanation for why they are the way they are. This is partly a biology class, and every biology discussion starts with the story of evolution. So, as we consider the social world of a Paleolithic human and what that brain needed to do for a Paleolithic human to be socially astute, we'll learn a little bit about the Paleolithic economy, group sizes, how the world was run for the caveman, to use the everyday term for Paleolithic humans. So that is the main non-Western context that we'll be examining richly. Can I get a volunteer to read the first learning objective, please? You don't have to come on cam, but just on mic.
Describe brain anatomy, functions, and development across the lifespan.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is really meaty, and we're going to be doing this objective all day, every day in this course, describing brain anatomy, brain function, and we'll try to fit in as much development as well. The main text we'll draw on to achieve that learning objective is this one here, Brain and Behavior by David Eagleman. And this is a brand new text. I'm still kind of deciding how much I like it. Feel free to let me know what you think of it. But one reason I picked it is that Mr. Eagleman is also a popular science presenter and communicator, and he has a lot of stuff like PBS specials about the brain. So if you enjoy learning about the brain this semester, you can sit down with your family and watch a documentary about it, presented by the author of our one of our texts. May I please have a volunteer read Learning Objective 2?
Evaluate and compare perspectives on what constitutes the mind.
Okay, we're not really going to do this, and I will explain why. Right there in our course description, we were given a perspective on what constitutes the mind. So the course description said the mind arises, sorry for my screen going up and down. The course description said the mind arises from the structure and substance of the brain. This idea that it is our biology that gives rise to our entire psychological experience, and that nothing happens inside us, to us, or for us without that biology happening first and causing it. That is a very specific perspective on what constitutes the mind. Some people call this perspective eliminative materialism. And we're going to be diving deep into that perspective, this idea that it is our biology that makes us. We're not going to be comparing and contrasting that with much. You can do this on your own time. Some people believe in souls or have other explanations for how the mind comes to be, and you can feel free to think about that. But we're not going to spend a lot of time comparing and contrasting here. Okay, can I get a volunteer to read for us Learning Objective 3?
Can you check out my water bottle inside of my buckets? Super thirsty.
Okay, I don't think that was a volunteer to read Learning Objective 3.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It's happened to us all. You're gonna see how bad it is when I try to share my screen. Um, Anybody?
Explain the interplay between social interactions and neural functioning in context.
Thank you. And do you say your name's Cindy?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so, this objective, again, very meaty, very important. And the number one place that this is going to be accomplished is in our final project in the course. Now, just in the chat, if you will, everybody go ahead and write what you recall the final project to be. Is it a research paper? Are we doing group presentations? What is the final project? Yeah, it's a puppet show. Okay, so when you signed yourself up for a neuroscience class, you might not have expected to be doing a puppet show, but that is what we're doing together this semester. And in just a moment, um, uh, I'm going to show you one example puppet show just to get our brains going this morning. Okay, we will also identify and discuss the social contexts that promote optimal neural functioning, but we're not really going to do this last objective either. It says that we're supposed to write an APA style paper. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do a puppet show, so I got permission from the department chair to not be doing that. So, in theory, your puppet show has APA style references. That would be the textbooks in the course. Oh, I haven't talked about our other textbook. We're also reading this semester, starting right away next week, the text Behave by Robert Sapolsky. I lost the book cover, but the subtitle of the text is Humans at Their Best and Worst. And it's perfect for this course because Sapolsky talks, he's going to begin in the reading that we do for next time with a description of an act of violence. And Sapolsky talks about what drives a person to an act of violence. And in his framework, this violence is presented as morally ambiguous. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it next time. So those are our two primary texts. And then it's also a requirement of a 400 level course that we read a little bit of original research. This is also something I asked the department about because reading original research in neuroscience is no joke. But we do have a sort of foundation paper that we're reading for next time. Don't worry, we're only reading the first 3 pages. But the first 3 pages do a good job of setting up what the field of cultural neuroscience is all about. We're getting beyond the sort of nature-nurture tension and asking some deeper questions. But what I want to call your attention to is on the second or third page of the reading, there's this large and sort of awkward graphic with a bunch of arrows and boxes. This is what we're going to really dive into next time. So do your very best to make sense of this image and bring your understandings to class on Thursday. Because we want to start out with a couple of frameworks that are going to be useful to us as we move through the class. Somebody said they entered late, just all the readings and textbooks. So behave, and someone asked, are all the readings and textbooks on Canvas? So the papers are on Canvas. Brain and Behavior should have been in the bookstore, and Behave should have been in the bookstore. Did anybody have issues with accessing these texts? Okay. Yeah. So, and I apologize for making you purchase this book when we're only going to read a couple of chapters, but at the same time, it's dense, and you're going to be pretty happy that we're only reading a couple chapters. But it's really well written, and it's a great explanation. Okay, to a puppet show. All right. So here is the part where I succeed in sharing my screen. We're sharing sound. Okay. So you should be seeing a pink box that says at the bottom, how my ex keeps coming back. We got this? So this puppet show was created by a past student of mine, Glenda Castro, and it's about the all too common moment where a toxic ex that you have cut out of your life for a reason hits you up late at night, and you've got to decide, are you texting the ex back? Um, let me see if I can pause. Do y'all see me again? I tried to pause the screen share. Yeah? Okay. Yes. Okay, great. I want to show you the main characters in Glinda's puppet show before she gets into it. So in her puppet show, she's going to be talking about two brain regions that are highly influential for social behavior. So they're very much main characters in the course that you'll be getting to know. So she's going to be talking about the reward network and the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex you'll see sitting up here in blue. So it's right behind your eyes. And this area of the brain is responsible for rule following, logic, and reason, as she explains beautifully in the show itself. The reward network is actually a set of structures. So if you look closely, you can see these two bits marked in yellow. When dopamine, another one of our substances, a chemical that's highly influential on our social behavior, when dopamine flows from this region down here to this region up here, your reward network is activated. And that causes feelings of motivation, pursuit, and desire. So you can imagine in this moment how these two brain regions might both have something to say about this consequential decision. So let's let Glinda take it away. Oh, wait, I got to share my screen again. Sorry. Okay, now we can see this. Hopefully we can hear this. Okay, here we go. It's quiet so far. You should hear her typing.
No, 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 no. Bad idea. Wait, who are you? I am your prefrontal cortex. I am responsible to keep you on track and to follow the rules and basically help you reach your long-term goals. And I am telling you now that this is a completely bad idea. Okay. Don't listen to him. Who are you? I'm your reward network. I am responsible for releasing feelings of cravings or desire. And girl, I know you desire him. I'm here to tell you that the way he makes you feel is so rewarding to you. So, don't listen to him. He wants to lead you down the path of righteousness. I'm going to lead you down the path that rocks. So text him back. No, don't text him back. Remember, he's your ex for a reason. He doesn't want the same things you do. If he didn't want the same things she wanted, then why is he texting her? Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, you like him, girl. You can't stop thinking about the way he makes you feel and how good he smells. Ugh, no, Glenda, you promised yourself and your friends, who, by the way, have heard this story multiple times and know how it ends, that you were not going to text him anymore. Keep your pride. Do your schoolwork. He hasn't texted you for months. Angel Kronk has a point. He doesn't. You know how he is. He's always busy. But look, he made time for you today. I know he makes you happy, and thinking about him just excites you. You're young and hot. Go hang out with him. Don't listen to the reward network. Your ex doesn't want anything to do with you. He's just sad and lonely and knows you have a soft spot for him. He has left you on red so many times, and he doesn't want anything to do with you. Leave him on red. You deserve someone who cherishes you and doesn't only use you when they're lonely. Okay, fine. Listen to the prefrontal cortex, but don't make us stay up crying with you anymore when you miss him and wish you went out with him. This is the last time you could see him. Smell his cologne or be in his arms. What if he's in a car accident? You would want to go out with him to feel that excitement and happiness one last time. This can also be the closure you always wanted. This is the last time. You said that last time! You're right. You know, we only have one chance at life. One last time. It wouldn't hurt. No! Yes! Pick me up in 2 hours. I should probably go shave. This is all your fault. You're just mad you lost.
All right. All right. So that was one, I believe, masterful, beautiful puppet show. It is a big project. Yes, thank you. Thank you to Glenda. Oh, sorry, hold on. My computer wants me to watch a TED Talk instead of teaching you guys right now. I think I got it. Okay. Yeah, thank you to Glenda for allowing me to share that. Masterful, beautiful. So this was about a social interaction or a potential social interaction. It's a social interaction when she receives that initial text from the ex. And she beautifully illustrated the sort of internal Sturm und Drang that a person might go through as they decide whether or not to respond to that text. You know, it's a tricky situation. As she said, sort of to herself inside her own brain during the puppet show, he's your ex for a reason. But in the end, which brain region, and again, we were focused on the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic, rule following, and decision making, and the reward network, which creates feelings of motivation and desire, which was the victor in terms of determining Glenda's ultimate behavior in this consequential social interaction. The reward network or the prefrontal cortex? Yeah, the reward network. The reward network won the day for her. And we can talk more as we get into your ideas for puppet shows, why that was. But one thing I noticed is that she mentioned multiple times smell. And just a little fun fact, all the other senses that you take in from the outside world have to be ported through this region that is like an air traffic controller for sensory data called the thalamus. And then it sends sensory information to different parts of the cortex for processing. And if that process gets messed up, you end up with a condition called synesthesia. And this causes folks with synesthesia to have very unusual sensory experiences. They report things like being able to taste colors or hear colors. And it's because of a misport of the sensory data. It's getting processed by the wrong region of the cortex. There's one sense that doesn't take that information superhighway through the thalamus, and it's smell. When we smell, that chemosensory data is just going straight into the limbic system, which is the ooey gooey middle of the brain responsible for drive and emotion. So if you've ever noticed that smell can have kind of an outsized effect on emotion at times, that's why. It's because it's processed more directly than all of our other senses, such as touch, hearing, or vision. Yeah, kind of a cool fun fact. Okay, so that is the puppet show. And the way the project will unfold, you're going to be doing a little written plan further into the semester. I've got to teach you some stuff so you have something to do a puppet show about. But as soon as we're ready, we've learned about our structures, we've learned about our substances, you're going to pick a moment from your real life where you can make your brain, the inside of your brain, sort of the stage upon which the puppet show takes place, just like Glinda did. She used a kind of angel and devil on her shoulder. But these puppets represent either structures, such as the reward network or PFC, or substances like oxytocin, as we discussed earlier. And you're going to show how the influence of either a structure getting electrically charged or a substance flooding the brain or being depleted in the brain influenced your behavior in a real life moment. It's autobiographical. So I've had people do everything from, really difficult and personal moments to simple decisions like whether or not to squash a bug on the floor of their dorm room. What you choose is up to you. Sometimes simple moments make really interesting questions when you peel back the layers and examine it from inside the brain. So that's our final that we have plenty of points writing on. And then in place of sort of quizzes, we have an assessment called discussion days. And on discussion days, basically, we're going to be showing up to class and doing kind of a live discussion of questions that probably I'll write, but I might steal some questions from you guys. You're going to be letting me know what you're curious about, what you hope this semester will teach you by the end of this session. So on discussion day, you're going to work in teams to formulate an answer to essentially a collaborative oral exam. And that might sound a little scary, but I promise it won't be. We'll actually practice the structure together. And then to prepare us for discussion days, and this is what I left out of the syllabus, we do have an assignment that is a comprehension check where I'm going to ask more conventional quiz type questions, multiple choice or true false questions that we will discuss. And that will help me get a read on whether or not everybody's with me as far as understanding the material I expect you to be able to draw upon in your discussion. So I don't necessarily expect that on discussion day you can give complete, perfect answers. It's not a TED Talk. But what I'm listening for is, can you marshal facts from the course to support an answer? So are you able to refer to lecture, text, discussions we've had, other materials that we've used in the course to construct an answer to either one of your own questions or one that I've written to go with each unit? So there's 4 units in the course. The first one that we're embarking upon starting on Thursday is called Mind of a Mammal. Now, of all your courses in human development, this one, 416, is going to for sure be the one where you talk about animals the most. And that is because when it comes to the structure and substance of the brain and the human mind that arises from it, a lot of our architecture is borrowed from the ancient and evolutionary past. So we carry the legacy of our animal ancestors inside us in our brain's design And it influences how we act, particularly when we get emotional, when we have these big mammal emotions, such as defending one's children. That's a really powerful, maternal rage is the most powerful emotion I've personally ever felt. Okay, let's see, where am I? All right. Okay, we're great on time. I want to do a little thought experiment with you guys. Do I have Adriana here? Adriana A?
Yes.
Okay, Adriana, in this thought experiment, we are going to pretend that you donate a kidney to me. Now, this is obviously a real thing that happens, and I don't know you well yet, Adriana, but let's just imagine that you're one of these altruistic people who goes out and gives a kidney out of generosity and spirit, or maybe to get into some sort of organ swap. So now I receive the Adriana's kidney. So I have a little piece of Adriana inside Melissa Cook's body. Am I still me? Adriana, what do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, most people agree. Just swapping a kidney doesn't change who I am as a being. Okay, great. Now we're going to um, consider a different transplant. So I've already talked to Sydney. Do I have Amelia D in session?
Hi, yeah.
Hey, okay, Amelia. All right. So, we're now going to discuss the face transplant, and I do not have time in this course to talk about the complexity of all of the nerves that actually work to innervate the face and allow us to move our face and make expressions. But it is freaking amazing that face transplants are real. They are. A face transplant can happen. Okay, so let's imagine that Amelia and I are both, motorcycle enthusiasts, and we are both we're both in a tragic crash on the same day. Now, uh, I am deceased after the crash, but my face is able to be harvested. Amelia thankfully survived her crash without any brain damage or significant injury other than terrible, terrible road rash. And so she becomes the recipient of a face transplant. So, Amelia, you're now living with Dr. Cook's face. So, in this new life where you have a new face, are you still Amelia?
I would say so, yeah.
Do you think anything about your life would change with a different face?
I mean, you'd have to get like a new driver's license and
So,
but and
okay, there would be big practical changes. And so, and correct me if I'm saying it wrong. Justina said maybe the way she's treated and perceived. And I think that's very astute. So, we are deeply social creatures. And we'll learn in Unit 4 that we make an enormous amount of snap judgments about the other humans we encounter based simply on facial architecture. So, there's a term that I won't say on the Zoom, but RBF, and it is a kind of misogynistic term for a gal who isn't smiling. And some of us may have been accused of having RBF or been victimized by the term RBF, but the fact is, how we come off our face is a big part of our social instrument. So it probably would change the recipient of a face transplant's life in ways that he or she or they don't even expect as they move on and roll through the world with this new face. Susie said, I think inside she's the same, but to everyone else she would be different. Yeah, and folks treating her differently might have an impact on her psychologically, particularly as the years go on and unfold. Yeah. An identity crisis could absolutely occur. We discussed this hypothetical example in the course last semester, And the person who swapped faces with me in the example was of a different gender than my own. And obviously, if you are used to having lived as a woman, suddenly having the face of a biological male would be a big swap. And it could definitely change your social reality. Okay, so we have one more sort of transplant example. And I want to make something very clear. Face transplants are real, and as I said, they're pretty amazing. It's really cool that doctors can do this. So I'm about to discuss a brain transplant, and every semester I have someone say, "Are brain transplants real?" They absolutely are not real. And by the time you get to know the complexity of this organ, you will understand why I say we're never going to see a brain transplant. I just don't think it's possible. Okay, so do I have any organ donors in the class? Because I would love an organ donor to be in this example. All right, consider becoming organ donors. Do I have let's see. Veronica L. Are you here? Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations, Samantha's an organ donor. Thank you. Okay, Veronica. So we're thinking about the same scenario where we're both in tragic motorcycle accidents on the same day somehow. But in this example, um, your brain is now damaged, Veronica, terribly damaged in the accident. I sustain life-ending damage to my cardiovascular system. So many veins and arteries are cut that it is not going to be possible for me, Dr. Melissa Cook, to live on. But through life support, oxygen and glucose is kept flowing to my brain just long enough for you to become. Wait, who am I talking to? Can you say your name again?
Veronica.
Veronica. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I have too many things in my head. Okay, so Veronica, you are going to become the world's first recipient of a brain transplant. Again, we've entered the world of fantasy. This is not a real surgery. But what I want us to consider is the question, are you still Veronica? So you have Veronica's body, but now inside your skull is going to be Dr. Cook's brain, all wired up and functional. I let's see if I have it. Oops. I want us to actually jump into breakout rooms and to discuss this. These should come out to be pairs. I want everybody to discuss this question. So the idea is that Dr. Cook's brain is now in Veronica's body. Is that still Veronica or what? And I want to hear from a few groups in about 2 minutes. So let's take just a second to discuss your thoughts on, is that still Veronica, even though it has Dr. Cook's brain in it, this creature, this person that comes out of surgery. Okay. Your rooms, yeah, it should be moving you to talk in pairs.
having to have your own personality versus like having the other person's memories and feelings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I say the process would be probably pretty intense and probably not even 100%.
Yeah. And then where do you like who do you hang out with after that? Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
what
you
would
have
your
your own.
social dynamics with people look like?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's like you have your own self and then the other person.
Hello. Oh,
Hi. I'm just,
Hi.
what do you guys think?
We were discussing that I wouldn't be the same person anymore just because I was telling Cindy that I think the brain is like really individualized, so I don't think my thoughts and like my beliefs would be in there. But yeah, that's what I thought.
I just wanted, I'll open it up to the floor in a minute, but since you were in the example, I wanted to know your specific perspective.
No, yeah, so that's what I those were my thoughts.
Yeah, so if your body lived on with my brain in it, um one of the other groups was saying who would you hang out with? What would your job be? Like, do you think your family would be sad?
I think for sure, because I think a big like what I do for work, even like what I do for school, I think it all connects to my brain, so I don't think I would be the same person. I think they would miss that person. And I don't think my job and like my interests would still be the same, if that makes sense.
Right. So
Yeah.
may I ask what you do for work?
Yeah, so I work at a nonprofit and so I manage an after school program. So it's a
Okay,
lot of
okay.
information. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So working directly with kids
Yeah,
or
working directly with youth.
okay, all right. I actually think maybe Melissa Cook's brain could adapt to that
Oh,
job,
wait, cool.
but I have the brain of a tired middle-aged lady. I very much enjoy college students, so probably we might lose this job.
Yeah, probably. And then I work with middle schoolers, so it's yeah, it's different.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna call everybody back, but thank you for being in the example.
Of course. Thank you so much.
All right. So folks are kind of filing back in from the breakout rooms, and I did have a chance to go and hear Veronica's opinion on the question, which I was very curious about. But yes, I want to hear from the group as a whole. What did you guys think? This new creature that has Veronica's body, but Dr. Melissa Cook's brain. Is it still Veronica? No. I'm seeing some no. I'm seeing a lot of no. All right. Would anyone say that this new creature is simply Melissa Cook?
No, I don't think so.
Can you say more about that? And is it Sarahi?
It's Sarai.
Sarai?
Um, yeah. I think personally no, because you're inputting your own brain into someone else or someone else's brain into yours. So it's kind of like playing Frankenstein. Like that person is no longer the same. Those memories, the childhood, the behaviors and everything is someone else now. It's you're on the outside, it's a physical appearance of Melissa Cook, but on the inside, the way your brain works is completely different now.
Yeah, and in the example, it was flipped around. So it's like Melissa Cook, Dr. Cook's brain going into Veronica's body. And but my question is, one question is, um, whose family would be sad?
I think both. If the person were brain dead and it would be transferred to them, they'd be
Yeah.
losing a relative. And if the person receiving the brain would no longer have the same Veronica, it wouldn't be no longer be their daughter, it'd be this stranger living inside their daughter.
Yeah, yeah. So, if whatever amount you call it me, first of all, I would lose her job. She works with middle school children. I do not have the patience for it. So, you know, many life tragedies would unfold. And, what a lot of my students have kind of come around to say is that this is kind of a new creature. Did any of you guys in your pairs hit on a concept like this is a new creature? And can you say a little bit about how you think that works? Yeah, so is it Malia? Malaya?
Yeah,
Yeah, would you mind telling us a little bit about your conversation?
sure. We were thinking that like the body would influence the brain because it is feeding it a lot of different things like we were talking about, our biology influences our psychology, and also your sociology would be pretty different. Like you
Yeah.
would we said like who would you hang out with after that? I don't know. That's kind of like an oversimplification of it, but
No, but I think it's a beautiful question. So you get out of this surgery and nominally you're Veronica, like your paperwork says that you're Veronica, but the brain inside Veronica is now a 47-year-old middle-aged lady with a whole different set of interests, capacities, social skills, whatever. So are Veronica's friends going to be chill with this personality? I have no idea. And Veronica's family will be bereft because the
mhm.
memories and the personality that they know and love as her will have disappeared with the disappearance of that simple 3 pound body organ. Um, I want to hear from a couple more groups because it's a rich discussion. Does anybody want to volunteer something that we haven't really touched on yet about this idea, hypothetical again, of this brain transplant? What do you think this new creature would face?
This is kind of just like building on what's already been said, but we kind of mentioned the movie Freaky Friday, how they wake up and it's like you're in somebody else's body, but everything else on the inside is like that same of like everything that's attached to your brain. So it kind of go along with like having the expectations of whose ever body you're in, of like what your day-to-day life should look like, but on
Yeah.
the inside, it's not the same as what you know and like what you're used to.
Yeah. So the day-to-day life would be very hard for the brain of Dr. Cook to adapt to the day-to-day life of Veronica, um, and the social world of Veronica. And so, in a way, yes, Justina.
Going back to a question that you said earlier about whose family would be sadder,
Hmm.
uh, in my opinion, I think it's the family that's receiving the new brain because they're like completely losing the person that they love, like all the memories that they've ever made together and like uh, just anything like personal that's completely gone. And it's almost like they're getting just to know someone new that they're supposed to love.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas the family that gave the brain of their loved one, at least they can maintain a conversation with that person and they might like still have the same like facial recognition and memories aligned. It's just a
Hmm.
different body.
Yes, I agree. I think my family, while I imagine their feelings would be complicated and they'd be mad at me for riding a motorcycle in the first place, because it's pretty dangerous, that they would have the opportunity to ask me questions, to speak to me. And while what sounds came out would now be Veronica's vocal box and it would change, everything about the expression of Melissa Cook. There is a core of memories, of narrative, of personal reality that would exist on in Veronica's body, and so I think probably my family would be having a very, very weird experience, but less bereaved in a way. This is just a guess. Somebody hit me up on direct message and asked a pretty good question, so I'm going to read it. They asked, would Veronica even wake up as a regular person, or would they have to relearn everything? Okay, again, brain transplants are not real. But in this hypothetical scenario, we are imagining you're gonna get to know just a touch in this course about what it is that learning really is, on a biological level. So learning is new connections. or richer connections or juicier connections in the brain. And so when we have a skill that we have learned, our brain's structure is different than before we did that learning. And you can see this over the life course. So, the example that comes to mind for me was a study of folks who in their 20s learned to juggle. And I don't know if you have tried juggling, but it is very difficult. And surprise, surprise, learning to juggle resulted in brains that were richer and more powerful in regions that were responsible for kinesthetic awareness, balance, all kinds of sort of sub skills of juggling were changed in the brains of people who made the investment in their 20s to learn to juggle. And those brain changes could be seen much, much later in life, 20, 30 years later, even if the person had given up juggling. So those brain changes were robust over time. And so the learning that I have done, the PhD that I went out and got, would all still be inside this brain, if you will. We're speaking kind of casually. And so, Veronica would presumably maybe be able to teach this class. And yes, I do think that that person might experience a whole host of mental issues and dissociation, and it would be an incredibly difficult struggle to adjust to life. And, something that actually I want to hear from maybe one more group. Is there anything that, we haven't really touched on? I want to touch on this idea that has bubbled up a little bit of the idea that this new creature would neither be Veronica nor Dr. Cook, but some sort of hybrid third. Did anybody in your group just do like show of hands for me if that's kind of where you landed, that it would be sort of a hybrid third being that's never existed before? Or that being, yeah, some people said that being in this new body would certainly have a pretty big impact on the Melissa Cook experience, which I'm currently having in this body. And there is a lot to be said for the neuroscience behind that particular answer. So I know that the title of the course, actually, it's Society to Synapse. So we're getting into synapse, but it mentions the brain specifically in our course title. Well, the brain is actually only one of four nervous systems that exist in the body. So in our model here, you see hanging out the bottom of the brain, you see the spinal cord. The brain and spinal cord together are the central nervous system. And so this is what we would be speaking of transplanting when we talk about some sort of brain transplant. So we're going to spend, in Mind of a Mammal, we're going to spend some time on the other nervous systems that are in your body and how they affect you on the day-to-day. And in particular, we're going to talk about, we won't give too much attention to the somatic nervous system because it just helps your muscles move. It's pretty cool, but we don't have time for everything in this class. We also will not talk about genetics at all in this class. We just have to cut some stuff out. So there's a system called the autonomic nervous system, and it is not in the brain. It is out in the body. And it is responsible for kicking off the fight, flight, freeze response. So I'm assuming that you guys have heard of fight, flight, freeze before, but it's that uncomfortable nervous tension that we get when we're faced with a threat. And it can happen for, truly life-threatening conditions like an animal attacking us while we're out on our evening jog. But it can also happen like it happened to me. I was kind of having cold sweats just before hopping on the Zoom today because it's day one and I've got nerves. So I didn't need that effect on my digestion, but the fight, flight, freeze system, which is totally in the body, actually affects mood and emotion. So, I will not make Veronica answer to the whole class whether or not she is a nervous person. But let's just say, hypothetically, for the example, let's imagine that Veronica is someone who feels nervous easily. So this means that she has a pretty reactive autonomic nervous system, and that fight, flight, freeze gets kicked up easy for her, and that this system is very powerful. There is a companion system, sometimes called tend and defend or rest and digest, that helps the body calm down after a threat is over. That system for her could be powerful, it could be weak, but this is out in the body. So that new being that is Veronica's body with Dr. Cook's brain in it, I'm pretty chill. I don't get nervous very easily. I don't know why it happened before the lecture today. But if Veronica was a more nervous person, I might change. My mood and emotions and response to everyday scenarios might change simply because of a change. I'm dealing with a different autonomic nervous system. I'm also dealing with a different enteric nervous system. We're going to learn about this in our unit coming up, Mind of a Mammal. The enteric nervous system is in your gut, and it works completely independently from the brain to manage the process of digestion. And it's lucky that we have one, because digestion's so complex. If we had to consciously think about digesting our food, we would have time to do little else. But it turns out that that enteric nervous system also can have some influence on our mood and emotions, particularly because it's the main source of serotonin, and just a little of that serotonin can make its way into the central nervous system. So in a very real way, I think there's a neuroscience reason to suggest that this third creature would be a dynamic hybrid, that would neither be that Melissa Cook and Veronica would both be gone after that day, and some sort of new creature would exist that would experience the world very differently than I have been experiencing it for these past 46 years. So, um, um, if the donor had a mental illness or substance abuse, would the recipient be affected? This is a great question. So, if I, Dr. Melissa Cook, have a mental illness, and maybe I do, mental illness pride, then yes, uh, if it's one of the illnesses such as schizophrenia that has a very distinct biological footprint that we can see on a brain scan, then that would be transferred right over. There would be no reason to expect that just because this brain with all the hallmarks of schizophrenia was in a new body, that the person would no longer be symptomatic. So yeah, it would affect them. Okay. All right. So I want to do a couple things. I want to highlight what we're talking about next time. I already said we're reading 3 pages of this kind of foundational paper um, on cultural neuroscience, and I'm asking you to really focus on this image. And then we're reading the beginning of Behave, the first 23 pages or so. And it's rich and interesting. Sapolsky kind of makes the case for taking an interdisciplinary look at behavior. And I suggest that you carefully read the whole thing, because he's going to bring up aggression, altruism, a lot of these sort of social phenomenon that we are concerned with. But the very most important part, you know what? And I'm going to make a Canvas post after this and make sure that I got the reading right. The very most important part of the reading for next time are the final pages, where Sapolsky begins to lay out his framework for dividing the brain into 3 big chunks. The fact is, we need to have some main characters that are the most socially important or socially relevant parts of the brain. And one way of kind of breaking down all the complexity of a human mind is to think about it in 3 evolutionary layers. So you have no doubt heard the term lizard brain. Can I get like a little show of hands if you've heard lizard brain? Yeah, and people mean different things when they say lizard brain, but they're often talking about sort of our more base instincts. So it turns out that, down in the part of your brain that comes just inside the opening at the bottom of your skull is the brainstem, which is considered the lizard brain. And we won't spend much time on it because it mostly runs the body automatically. It does stuff like regulates the heartbeat and breathing. But there's a very socially important part of the brainstem, this guy, the cerebellum, which plays host to a library, a vast library of associations, which give rise to some of the sense of good or bad vibes that we might get in a situation without consciously understanding exactly what that sensation of bad vibes is based on. It's this tiny little guy down in the brainstem doing that work. Above the brainstem, we have the limbic system, which is sometimes called the mammal brain, and Sapolsky calls it the mammal brain. And in this area, we have all of our big mammal emotions. So you think about antelope, in a field, budding antlers, competing for mates, big animal, mammal emotions. The reward network is located there. And the amygdala, which just gives rise to fear and anxiety, is located there. And then layered over the top, just on the top, the part of the brain that you think of when you think of a brain, this sort of smushed Cheeto looking stuff, that's the cerebral cortex. So it's a very thin layer just on the top. We have our layer 2 here and our layer 1 down here. So the cortex is responsible mostly for sensory processing. That's what all the back is doing. And we're not going to get to talk much about that. But we're going to talk a lot about the part of the prefrontal or the part of the cortex, the prefrontal cortex, that helps us with logic, decision making, rule following, and the art of choosing actions that are actually in alignment with our long-term life goals. And it turns out that this has a big influence on how we show up in relationships. And when it's depleted or otherwise overwhelmed, it can change our social behavior. So I'm going to try. I went ahead and made a list for you guys that we'll go over next time of main characters so that when you're reading our dense text, you know what to focus on the most. And so I'm going to try to present to you the 3 layers of the brain and a few of the main characters within, and we'll be discussing this cultural neuroscience framework as well. Okay, so as I said, I owe you an update on the syllabus. Very sorry about my mistake. I'll be delivering that next time. And then in the lecture on the 27th, we're going to talk about brain evolution. I'm going to set aside 20 minutes to go over the newly revised syllabus in a little more detail and just make sure that we're all clear on the mechanics of the course and where our points are coming from. My office hours are on Zoom at 3:15, directly after class. Last semester, I had office hours on a different day, and I would sit there on the Zoom for an hour, and absolutely no one came by ever. But I often have a little cluster of questions after class. So I've decided to kind of accommodate that and just make my office hour directly after class. So we're going to wrap up. I will go take like 5-minute break, but then at 3:15 in this same Zoom room, which is going to keep running, I'll be available for office hours type questions that anybody has. But I'm really excited about the semester. I almost forgot. You will see on your to-do on Canvas, it should be popping up. There is a discussion board where I'm soliciting questions from you about what you hope this class will answer. So we have our big theme. When we interact socially, how do our nervous systems influence each other? And this could be anything from a therapist and a client to a parent and a child to romantic partners to a whole team of football players charging the field to an entire tribe going to war to defend resources. But we know we're deeply influenced by the nervous systems of those around us. So what questions do you hope get answered this semester? I am inviting you to hop over onto the discussion board, write 2 questions of your own, and then use the like feature should be enabled. So other questions that other peers have written, go ahead and upvote them so that I can see like which are the most popular. And we have a little time reserved within the syllabus to answer your questions specifically. And I will even do research. Last semester, someone asked about something I didn't know about, and I prepared a little TED talk on it. Okay. Um, so, all right. The main points we have, the main points on the sheet we have to. Megan, I'm sorry, I don't understand your question. Maybe you could ask it.
The blue sheet that you just held up about the main points we should keep in mind, what were those again?
Oh, okay. We are going to go over this in exhaustive detail next time.
Okay,
So,
sounds good.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So, office hours are in 2 minutes. Otherwise, we are done here. Say, if you haven't said anything on the chat, say thanks or bye, because that is how I take roll. Thank you very much. I'm going to go off camera for just a sec, and I'll be back for office hours. I'm back. I'm alone. I'm going to take that as meaning that no one has questions. Hang out.